Hello everybody, again, just gonna do it again. Welcome to this Axon Framework 5 live stream, where instead of the last time, where I did a migration of an Axon Framework 4 application to Axon Framework 5, I'm gonna, start from scratch. Well, not 100% from scratch, because if I do it 100% from scratch, the 1 hour I've slated for this is, not sufficient, or I think it's not gonna be sufficient. So I tuned it down a little bit. Now, the flow I'm going to take is that I'm going to follow the getting started that we have already prepared when we made the first milestone. So let me show you what we have there. So we have this getting started page. This is in our Axonic docs, so our library, so to say. If you do land on docs.axonic.io and you're wondering where is it, here it is. It's under the basics because it's the new set of basics that we're going to do. And what I've did for this exercise is I've decided to follow this getting started, because this is the thing that you can also play around with to get started. So it might be familiar after you've watched this stream or this video, and then you're going to do that flow yourself. A couple of things that are good to note. I'm on milestone 1 of Axon Framework 5. So we have released the first milestone somewhere half of April. Has a lot of goodies already in there. Definitely not finished. We're hard at work at getting milestone 2 out the door soon. So that's one thing to look out for. A very important notion is that things will be Java 21. So if you want to play around yourself as well, please use at least Java 21. You have to. And for this example, I'm taking a vertical slice architecture approach. The reason for this is that it aligns very nicely with an event modeling approach, which, as you might imagine, works quite nicely with an Axon Framework application. So we made some changes in how you can handle your commands, how you can deal with events, and how you do all that stuff and configure all that stuff so that it better aligns with that flow. So that more aligns with what you would want from such a setup. So, is there anything important in here? Oh yeah, your feedback matters. Please, if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat. I already see hello. Hello, Nakodash. I think I know who you are, but welcome for joining in. That's very nice of you. If you have questions during the stream, just pop them in the chat. I will be taking note of those. I might be very busy, but I'll definitely come back to them. If at a later stage you want to provide some feedback, we have made a dedicated place on our forum. So this is our forum, Axonic Discuss. And here on the left in the categories, you see there's an Axon Framework 5 milestones category. Under this category, you can make threads if you like, where you can post questions, maybe what we're going to do, what we have been doing, also how things are progressing if you want to. If you want to have a chat with us, you can go here. If you just want to provide feedback about what it looks like, we have a template for you as well. And let's go to the top. Here you could take this template that our colleague Mitchell has drafted if you want to. Now, with that said, you can go back to our domain that we're in, because we need to model a specific domain. The domain we're using is the university domain, wherein you can create a course where a student can be enrolled and students can be subscribed to those courses. There's a reason why we're taking this one, but let's first move a bit further. If you would be going through the getting started yourself, you can follow the entire text. I'm not going to read everything out loud. You see that there's an event modeling diagram here as well that you can take note of. This is giving us the operations or the things that happen in our system that will be important for the implementation I'll be making. So you see that a student can be enrolled, a course can be created, course capacity can be changed, student subscribe to course, and a student can be unsubscribed from the course. The one I will first be focusing on is the create course feature. But no, that's not what I'm first going to do. My apologies. First going to go through the project structure. So for project structure, you can actually go to our favorite place, which is the IDE. At least it is my favorite place. I'm not sure if it's yours. Let's open the POM. So I've chosen to use Maven, in all honesty, just because I'm used to it. You don't have to choose Maven, of course. You can go for Gradle if you like to. Here we see that I'm using Java 21. I'm using the Milestone 1 framework 5. I have some test stuff in here. I have built stuff in here. Not very exciting. So, but if you want to get started, these two framework dependencies are the ones you could take note of. Taking these two should get you sufficiently so to start making an event source model so that it can evolve and that you can make decisions if you like. And if you want to test that, you would definitely need to Axon test. For those that come from Framework 5 or even before that, these modules might look familiar to you. Well, there's a reason for that. They're still there. I added some logging in there, as you can see, and some testing. And there's a reason for that, actually, which I think is quite nice to show. So we can go to the sources. I already prepared some minor things in here, like I said, because, well, making a plain application is not very interesting. I'm not using Spring, as you can see. Don't be afraid. Spring will come back. For Milestone 1, we, however, have not made Spring integration yet. Spring integration is something we're planning to get for Milestone 2. Although, for being very honest, we need to fight for it a little bit. But I'm here to fight for that because I want to make things easy for all of you. What I'm doing in here is I'm making our main configurer. So instead of having Spring do that for you, I define an event sourcing configurer. Now, why do I make an event sourcing configurer? Well, because I want to have an event sourcing application. So I'm using the configurer that the Axon Framework event sourcing module provides me. This will set certain defaults that you would expect from an event sourcing application, like that there is an event store that you can use, which is, well, what we want to use. And I create it, and I register something that I will come back to in a bit. So this would be a very bare bones setup. Let's have a look at the first steps, the first feature that we'd be introducing, which is the course creation feature. So this really is a initiation point of our model. The first thing is, okay, we want to make a course. We're going to dispatch that create course command, and we want to handle that and do some validation. So, can have a look at these. See that there's a course created and a create course. So there are two messages. There's some guidance in here in how you would do this in a vertical slice style. So I have followed this style, which we can see if we go back to the packages. Go here, I have a faculty context. In this faculty context, I have an events package. And this is essentially the communication between the slices. So this is why the events is one layer higher than the write stuff. Now, why call this write? Well, when you're looking at the event modeling flow, you have writes and reads and automations. Those are typically different slices. And by taking this flow, by taking this slice architecture, we can break those apart. And you can have developers work on those separately. So somebody apparently already created the create course. And in a bit, we will start to subscribe students. But it's very nice. So this could have been done, well, in conjunction with one another. Very pleasant. Let's take a look at the messages themselves. They're pretty plain. I've chosen to use a UUID for my identifier. Course can be created with a name and a capacity. Not very special. Course created event, also a record again. Really loving those records from Java. I hope I'm not the only one here. Same fields, one addition, and that is that we're stating what the event tag of this event is. In the create course slice, this is the only annotation I'm using. We're working on getting a way that you don't necessarily have to use an annotation here, because we are aware not everybody likes those annotations. For Milestone 1, this is what it is. My apologies. We will improve. But what is this? Well, when you're publishing an event to an event store, you need to tell Axon Framework, okay, and does this event belong to some domain context topics from you? Do I need to add some tags to that event for you, essentially? This annotation does that on the fly. So this annotation tells Axon Framework, okay, when this event is put on in the event store, we need to read if I have any annotations called @event_tag. If so, I'll use the field or getter name as the name of the tag, the key of the tag, and the value of that field will become the value of the tag. And that will be stored together with the event in the event store. All right, with that said, let's jump back a little bit to our flow, to create course flow. We have our create course command. In here you see we're using a dedicated identifier. In all honesty, I was lazy, so I didn't. I do think this is a very good idea, mind you. So I would typically recommend that you use typed identifiers. But it's a choice, and this time I was lazy and I chose not to, for the sake of the sample. Okay, so what we're going to do is that we're going to start with the test, which is, well, that's nice. We can do that because we have the flow from our event model. We know what to expect based on what kind of messages. We don't necessarily have to implement the gut of that yet. So that is what this getting started does for us as well. So, all right, so we can have a look at the create course test class, which, well, another developer already created for me. It's very lovely. So here it is. For those, again, that are familiar with previous versions of Axon Framework, the testing flow is a bit different from what you've been used to. There are two things that might, well, pop up right away. The naming is different. It used to be aggregate test fixture or Saga test fixture. Those will not come back in Framework 5, I think. Maybe as a legacy thing, and that's it. But then we still expect you to eventually migrate to this flow. Furthermore, you see that we've broken it down into smaller steps so that it is, well, more nicely readable that, okay, given, I'm now going into the given phase, there is nothing, no prior activity. Now, I'm jumping to the when phase of testing. Now I'm dispatching a command. Done with the when phase, so we move to then. So you can break that down into smaller steps, into, well, more readable steps. Doesn't mean you can mash them apart or together again. We just think this is a very nice way to look at it. One thing that might not have crossed your mind right away is that the fact that we start this test fixture with a configurer. I'm very pleased we're doing this, because by doing so, we give the fixture a lot more power for what it can test. If you go back a bit what I said, that there is an aggregate test fixture and a Saga test fixture. Since, I think, Framework 1, not 100% sure, definitely since Framework 2, but also think since Framework 1. And that means the scope was always testing the aggregate or testing the Saga. Now, the scope can be a lot bigger. You can test your Axon application. This opens up the door to test your projection side, to potentially test your snapshot flow, to test your deadline flow, to test your dead-letter queue flow. All those things are becoming more commonplace now. On top of that, by taking in the main configurer that I'm creating here, you don't have to duplicate all the steps you have between your test flow and your normal flow. This means it aligns a bit better with what Spring Boot tests have been doing recently, that they just wire the application. You didn't have to duplicate the beans anymore for your tests. You just use what's already there. Honestly, pretty straightforward when you think about it, but still very powerful. Okay, enough said about that. You've seen our test fixtures. I think they're quite clear. Once nothing has happened and I create a command or I create a course, I expect the course created event to occur. Seems fair. If there already is a course created event for a specific course ID and I dispatch a command again for this, I, at least in my example, expect an exception. I've chosen to throw an exception. You could, well, publish an event if you like. I don't think that's correct. Or you could ignore it entirely. I believe that our getting started suggests that you, well, just ignore it. So let's have a look. Here we have the first test case. Yeah, that is aligning with that one. Ooh, it goes into the command handler. That's actually quite nice. Let's go into the command handler now. So we need to go to the command handler. For that, I'm jumping to find that thing actually. So here in the main configurer, I'm registering what's called a stateful command handling module. For milestone 1, this was the only way to register command handlers. In milestone 2, you'll get back the old-fashioned aggregate, or how we've been starting to call it, entity flow back. So you can again use, well, what you've been used to, having a more bigger model. If you don't want to, well, you can break it apart, as I'm going to show right now. I'm injecting a stateful command handling module, which I'm creating from my create course configuration. All right, this class. This resides in my slice here. All this is here together, lumped in my one package, so that I'm not obstructing any other packages. Kind of nice. I'm creating my command handler, and I've deliberately taken the non-annotation based approach flow here, because that is also something new and I wanted to show it. This is honestly part why I already prepped it, because it's a bit more work. So here you see I have a command handler, made it package private. I definitely recommend to, because somebody from another package, another slice, you shouldn't be bothered by this command handler at all. All the things you would need are the messages. So please only depend on the messages. You don't need the rest. You can just make certain they don't. So that's nice. I'm getting a command, I'm getting a so-called event appender, and I'm getting, well, a create course state. Okay, that's nice. So I'm using that state to check if it, well, was it an empty state object? So did I load nothing based on the command I'm handling, or did I load something? If I loaded nothing, that means the identifier should be null, and means I can publish an event, which I'm doing here through the appender. A little bit about the event appender. This is a replacement for that aggregate lifecycle that you might have been familiar with. So the aggregate lifecycle used thread locals, and we started to dislike thread locals with all the reactive goodness that has been coming the last years. So we're not going to get that back in framework either. So if you want to apply events within the scope of a given entity or handler, please use the event appender instead. Yeah, so if it's correct, I'll publish an event. If it fails, then I throw an exception. Okay, this is my command handler. So how does this wire into Axon? To get this wired into Axon, I make this stateful command handling module. So this is a builder flow. I need to give it a name so that we have named modules that you can see back when you're, well, making the configuration. We're using something similar that we just saw with the test fixtures. So you have separate steps. Given now I'm going into this phase, when I'm going into that phase. So by doing command handlers, you're telling the builder I'm now going into the flow where I want to add command handlers. I'm telling the framework I want to register a command handler for this create course command. And then, well, this is given a builder. It's actually what we call a component factory. This component factory gives you the entire configuration, and then you need to give it, well, in the examples here, you can either give a component factory of a stateful command handler, or the stateful command handler, or the command handler right away. That's a choice. I'm choosing the component factory because I want to use something from the config. So here we have a bunch of wrapping code. If you're using annotations, you don't have to write this. If you don't want to use annotations, well, you have a way forward. You see, you can use it if you want to. That's what I wanted to show. I think that's a very nice addition to Axon Framework for a couple of reasons. Well, if you're a purist, or if you dislike annotations, or if you just want to get a better understanding of the black box that you could arguably say all the reflection-based annotation stuff is doing, you can give it a try. You can actually, well, play around with it yourself manually and see what it does. In this case, I'm creating a stateful command handler, which is, well, as you can see, a lambda, giving in a command as a message. This is why I'm grabbing the command payload from that thing and casting it to the message. I'm getting a state thing, and I'm getting a context. Here you see that I'm making an event appender for a given context. This makes it so that you are, well, aware of the context you're in and that everything's happening in the right life cycle. The state is the other important thing. So I think we can first go, before we dive into this, to have a look at the state. Very simple. I could have made this a record. Yeah, I just didn't. I just didn't. Yeah, just a choice. I went for a regular class. It just has an identifier because that's all the stuff I needed when we look at the command handler. We just want to validate, well, did an aggregate, my apologies, did a state object with this identifier exist already? Well, if no, then I'm going to publish. If yes, what are you doing? I'm already there. Why are you creating this course again? Throw an exception. So, okay, we got a create course thing. We can go back to the config. Here you see I'm using the state object to load an entity based on an identifier. So what is the state thing? So the state thing is, as you can see here, a state manager. The state manager gives access to the repositories that have been registered with your Axon Framework application. This is what the configuration will do in another step, which I'll explain in a bit. I think this is also very nice because this essentially would allow me to, let's assume there is another one. Let's assume there is a, I don't know, just a regular object. That there is a repository that gives me, based on a string identifier, another type of object, some other repo you have, and I can load it if I want to. I can just get that for you in this flow. This means that within a specific context, within a specific flow, I can handle or load more entities. This is a sneak peek at what's going to come. I'm super proud that we have this, in all honesty. Yeah, regardless. I need to do the exception handling as well, obviously, because, well, I'm not choosing for the annotation-based approach, so Framework cannot wrap that for you. And you see that the return type is a so-called message stream. This is now the default return type of any message handler in Axon Framework. This allows you to either return nothing, 1, or n, which very clearly aligns with a command handler that may have no response or 1 response, queries that can have n responses, and events that by nature you cannot really return a response to. And the stream can fail, as you see I'm doing here. This is an internal API, but you can play around with it if you're doing it on this level. Once the state is loaded, I can actually invoke that command handler that I'm creating here. So I'm taking that create course command handler, so the object that you would be making as the slice, and I'm injecting the payload, the appender, and the create course. And this is that method we've been seeing here, the simple command handler method. You see I'm returning a command result message with the identifier, and I throw an exception if it fails. Is that it? No, there's more annotation magic. And that comes to the entities. Because the stateful command handling module, well, has command handlers, stateful command handlers, which, well, act on entities, act on things that, well, are the state, that need to be loaded from the state manager. So you need to tell it what those entities are within this module. And that is essentially that state object that I showed you in just a bit, that I could have made a record out of, which I was too lazy for. I'm using a static method again, and in this case, I decided it's an event-sourced entity. This means that this thing can evolve, it can handle events, and based on handling those events, it can update the state of an object. If you're using the builder, I can actually show you. If you're using the builder, you got two options, annotated entity or regular entity. In this case, I chose the regular entity, And this forces you into the flow to first provide a factory that instantiates the entity, then a way to resolve the criteria based on the commands it's given. So this resembles that event tag we've been seeing. So you need to tell it, okay, I'm handling based on a course ID, important, and the entity evolver. This resembles the decider pattern where you can evolve a flow as well. We deliberately chose it so because we think that quite nicely aligns. An entity evolver gives you the entity at that point in time, the event that you're going to use, and a context. As my example is quite simple, I can only deal with create a course created event. This is the only thing I do, and then set the identifier, and then I return the entity. That is my slice. I've shown the command handler, I've shown the state, I've shown the command handler itself next to the command, and I've shown the configuration, which in all honesty is the biggest chunk of it, which is, well, in all honesty again, why we provide the annotation based approach. Again, it's a choice. Let's see if this test works. All right, nice. Let's also see if my application can run. All right, did a successful course run, that's nice. So I saw the identifier was returned, but also duplication flow, and I get the exception. So I'm doing a couple of things in here. Let me show that first. So I'm getting my configurer and I'm building it so that I'm getting Axon's configuration. Then I'm describing that configuration. This is a new thing that we've introduced in Milestone 1, which I'm also very proud of, because it gives you a means to, well, explain the application. In this case, I'm using a file system based flow. And here you see that, oh, we got some parameter resolvers in there. We have a hierarchical parameter resolver apparently. Do we have other things than parameter resolvers? I do hope so. Component registry. Ah, here, we got a command bus. You see it even clicks to the command bus. Isn't that nice? We got a command gateway. Got an event bus. All these things allow us, or allow you, that if you've made an Axon application and you're not really sure what it is doing under the hood, which things are in place there, that you can just tell it, subscribe me, please. Subscribe what you are, or describe what you are. And then you can just output it. I think that's very, this will help us as well, to help you out if you have an issue. And it should further clarify how things are being set up. So I'm describing everything. And I'm doing a basic test run. So here in the test run, this is when I start the configuration. I do need to start it manually once I've built it. I'm getting the command gateway, making a course, and I'm doing two test runs. Quite simple, I think. Now, halfway in, as I hoped for, I think we finalized this slice. Is there anything important? Yeah, so here we're doing the configuration. This example actually does it through the annotation based approach, but I really wanted to show you the non-annotation based approach because, well, it took a bit of work. Yeah, so here we're adding another test case that also shown you validate against the states. Yeah, so I think we got this one. Yeah, and this is also the last part I just showed you. All right, let's go to the subscribe student flow. In this case, I actually need to build something. Woo! I think that's fair, as this is a live coding stream as well. At least that was my intention. So we need to have a couple of things. So let's have a look in the diagram. We need to have some events, I see. The course created is already there, as we know. We need to add a student enrolled with an identifier, first or last name, a subscribed student, and a student is subscribed to, well, a course, but, well, it also belongs to a student, right? And we have a student subscribed to course, also two events. So why are we taking this example? Well, this shows how what used to well, mostly had to be two different aggregates, we can now just combine those into a single state object, reading from two streams and publishing to those two streams, which you can see from the student subscribe to course. It has a student identifier and a course identifier. So it's important for the course to make further decisions, but also for the student to make further decisions. And being able to do that is, well, I think very powerful. So let's see, I was a bit lazy there by making a copy, but I want to call it like this. Ooh, actually, I cannot do it like that. Into faculty, and we need to add a event tag. As we've seen, I'm doing UUIDs. We're going to do a first name, and we're going to do a last name. All right. And yes, let's move to this guy. And we need to subscribe student to course event. So we're going to add that too. Student subscribe to course event. There we go. And this has two event tags because it belongs to two events. UID, student ID. We're adding it twice, like so. So now we have two. And we need to add a command. Well, we need to go to our write slice because this is again a write flow. We're going to go there, and we're going to make a new command for this. Again, a record, a subscribe student to course command, and this has two UIDs as well. A student ID and a course ID. Now, what you might be wondering is, how do I target this one command to two models in the same time? How do I tell this? For now, we need to do an annotation for this, but that annotation needs to have a combined object. So I'm going to make a specific object for this, which I'm going to call the subscription ID, which will have both these fields, like so. And it's this subscription ID, which I can add to the command. So I'm going to add a getter, public subscription ID, like so, which returns a new subscription ID of the student ID and the course ID. And I'm going to make this a target entity identifier. For those that are familiar with Axon of yore, this was the aggregate identifier, like so. You see it's still you can still depend on it. We will remove this or change this eventually. We really also want to provide a way that you don't have to define this in your commands. For now I have to. And well, we need it to target the two things, so it makes it a bit of a special case. So this is a mandatory in this flow. All right, let's go back to the getting started. See if we have done all that we had to do. So we got our student subscribe to course, we got a subscribe student to course. I already went a step further. Here we just use the identifiers. I already added the subscription ID. And we're going to do some tests, yeah, because we have some validation. We can already do this, again, because we have the event modeling flow. We can just take those. That's kind of nice. So let's actually make a test case. So I'm going here. Oop, my apologies for the flickering. Now we're going to add a class called subscribe student to course test. We're going to make that private Axon test fixture. Let's call it fixture. We're going to introduce a setup where this fixture becomes the Axon test fixture with the Axon University main configurer. All right, and then we need to add some tests. So here I've also given me some leniency, because I could copy this over, but I am a massive fan of using live templates. So here we go. Ooh, made a typo. Let's change this name. All right. So as you can see, I just used an IntelliJ Live template. So you can set that up to add my successful subscription test. And I'm going to do this a couple more times for the other validations we want to do, like the student already subscribed test and the course fully booked test, and also the student subscribed to too many courses test. So this is obviously a quite straightforward one. This is relatively easy. We expect that once a student subscribes itself to a course, that can actually succeed. If that student was already subscribed, that it doesn't happen again. And then again, we're throwing an exception in those scenarios. A course has a certain capacity, as you can see from that capacity field here. If you recall, that is the capacity on the course created event. So that needs to be defined. So here we're testing that once a course has too many students. So Mateusz already signed up, I already signed up, Mitchell already signed up, and now, well, somebody else wants to sign up. That's just a no-go. Yeah, you cannot. So we got that one. Then we have the student subscribed to too many courses. So as a student, you also just have limited capacity of attending courses. There is no way to get more time into one day, obviously. So in this case, Milan is very interested in doing, well, a lot of courses. And granted, he is a very smart guy, so maybe he'd have the time for that. But, well, you know, we've set a limit. You can only have, well, assign yourself to 3 courses from at least our university right now. So the 4th time he's trying that, it should fail. Those are the tests we are doing. Now, if I run these, everything should fail. Because for the keen eye, I only made a test. I didn't make anything else. And it should be clear from the exception as well that there is no handler for the subscribe student command. I think that is entirely fair. So let's actually add those to our slice. The subscribe student to course command handler. Again, I'm going to make this empty. And I'm going to leave it empty for now. I think that is fair. We need to have some state. And I have chosen to combine the state in this case. So I'm going to, well, just have some subscription state that combines the course flow and the student flow into one object. If you don't want this, if you want to have separate state objects for the course and the student while making this slice, that's a choice. But that now, because we're taking this vertical slice architecture style, there becomes a choice to, well, perhaps the team, but also the developer. Because somebody could be working on a subscribed student in total isolation from the other that's working on create course, as long as they have the common understanding of what the event should be. So, well, create course in this case is non-annotation based. Subscribe student will be. I think that is very nice. This is why I need to tell it. It's an events forced entity. But for now, I'm going to be lazy and do it like that. And I need to configure it. And this is where, well, we don't have the Spring goodness yet. So I need to make this guy. I need to add a public static stateful command handling module. The subscribe student without typos student module, like so. Let's get that out of the door. Named subscribe students. And alright, but we also need command handlers, obviously. So here we have the basics that we've also already seen before. This time I'm taking an annotation based approach. Here we again expect a component factory. This is essentially a lambda that gives you Axon's configuration, so all the steps you've done before. So if you would require something from the config, you can get it. I don't need it right now, so I'm being well, upfront and do it like this. I can just inject it as so. For the entities, I'm doing the same. I need to give an entity, and I'm doing an events forced entity builder, and I'm making that an annotated one. The identifiers I have are that subscription ID that we made, and the class, the subscribe student state class. All right. There's one final step we need to do for the config. That is, we go back to this class, and we register an additional module. Is this the method? Yeah, and then the student subscribe student configuration, like so. All right, so we should now have something that can start again. So let's see if the demo gods are nice to me. Hi, by the way, I think this is Milan in there. Welcome to the stream, Milan. Hope you enjoy it. All right, so things started up. That's cool. This old flow still worked. That's also very cool. If we do the test, this should still fail because we haven't added a command handler yet. Dumb me. So we can go to the command handler. Now I'm going to do something I really like. I do it like so. Again with a live template, but you can see you can also fill in the blanks. Subscribe student to course command. So I got my command. I got the subscribe student state, like so. I got an event appender, and what I'm going to append in this case is the student subscribed to course event with, well, let's assume I can just grab those, right? All right, so we got our plain command handler. We're not making any decisions yet, but we should at least see something else from the tests now. One success, a couple of failures, because, well, we don't see what should be happening. Let's see what we're missing. Let's go back to the getting started. So we've made our tests. Okay, we've done this. We've made the command handler. Ooh, this command handler already does a bit more. Yeah, makes the command handler. You see the max capacity. Here the state object is internal to the command handler. That's a choice. That minimizes the amount of classes. I decided to do something else. And here you see it's very clearly taking a decider flow as well. That returns the list of events. We, by the way, want to make it so that the events you've decided on can be the return object from the command handler. So really to resemble the decider flow. Still in the works, but a bit of a sneak peek because I do think that's going to come. Ooh, yeah, one thing I glanced over, the inject entity. Well, I'm taking the annotation-based approach. So you need to tell Axon Framework how this subscribe student state, how that is retrieved from that state manager we've seen earlier. And you do that by telling it, inject this entity. That flow will automatically check in the command for a target entity identifier and, well, figure out if there is a repository with that identifier and this state object, and they'll load it for you. It's that simple. They take a bit of work though, but it is that simple. So yeah, let's go back. We got our event sourcing stuff in there. This is where where the sample adds the subscription ID. As you see, I chose to do it a bit earlier. The target entity identifier, and yeah, we can actually add some validation. So let's do that. So we can go back. And the validation, I think, should happen. The deciding should happen here, right? This is where we're doing our things. So let's first assert the fact that we assert a student enrolled into faculty. Again, my most favorite thing, the live templates. We need to add this over here so that it can actually be validated. We're missing a field in the state. Very clear. We need to add that stuff. We don't have that yet. So student enrolled into faculty event. Here I'm using an event sourcing handler from your, which you might be used to. I'm adding this as a variable and now as a field. So we got our first field. Oh yeah, we need to have a way to retrieve that, of course. So we add a getter for the student ID as well. All right. So this should allow us to, it already succeeded because it was doing no validation, honestly. Should still succeed, obviously. Sad times. Student given identifier never enrolled in faculty. I'm not going to linger on this in favor of time because there's more I want to show. I'm just going to be a lazy boy and use the additional assertions that I have built already. Because we have 4 tests, we have several assertions we need to do. So we do the student already subscribed, validation. This again gives us an error. We again need to do this. And the error is we don't have the already subscribed operation. So we can add already subscribed, which is nothing right now. Let's make this a student already subscribed value. How do we validate this? Well, if anything, this is a personal preference, by the way. We're initiating the state on several flows, and the student state is starting when the student enrolls the first time. So I prefer to do that over here. But how do we switch this? How do we change this around? So we need to have another event sourcing handler, the student subscribe to course event. So in this case, we need to validate a couple of things, and that is that the course ID matches the course and student ID match that we have. We don't have a course ID yet. That's a bit of an issue. If those two match, then we know that this student that we're handling was already present. So we add another course created event because we also need this field, the course ID. So more state. I already know we need the capacity, so let's add the capacity because we need to validate if we have sufficient space in our course. And now we can get the course ID from here. So let's call this the new course ID. And we can do this again for the student ID. And now if new course ID dot equals course ID and new student ID that equals the existing student ID state that we have, then we know the student is already subscribed. That becomes true or has just been subscribed. Now, let me be detailed. I love my details from now and then. Okay. Let's go back to the command handler. We got that state going. Let's do another assertion. Course, no, not this assert. Course still has capacity. So that's also one we gonna add, like so. You can guess the flow I'm in, right? Just adding more and more validations. Course has sufficient capacity. So we need to validate the capacity that we have with all the students that have been subscribed to a course. Okay, that sounds fair. So we need to have some fields that captures how many students have been subscribed to a given course. And, subscribed students to course. All right. As I explained previously, I prefer to instantiate those on the instantiation of that stream, of that entity stream. So I'm doing that here. And here I can do another check if I'm actually handling a student subscribed to course event that belongs to my course created event flow as well. So I need to match the course ID again. So if the one I'm getting equals the course ID, then I know the can go up a bit, like so. And with that, we can do the validation that we have, that the capacity, course has sufficient capacity, is more than, I believe that's what we should be doing. No, let's flip it around, like so. Yeah, because this course has sufficient capacity, still has capacity. Okay, go back to the handler. Another one. Let's go to the final one. Thanks for being patient in this flow. And this is, yeah, what you would be doing if you're making it like this, I guess. I have another. Let's first not forget to add this guy. There we go. Another decide. We add another method. And now we need to have a count for how much courses a student has been subscribed to. So we need another field. Let's be lazy again. Student subscribed. Students course subscription count. I think that's nice. And if this is larger or equal to 3, then well, we're gonna blow. And we need to increase when a student subscribes to that one. So let's be lazy, like so. This should be it, you might be thinking. So let's try it again. Oh, and everything fails. There's a very specific reason for that. And that has to do with our commands, with this subscription ID. How is this mapped to the tags that we have? Where is it? To these tags that we have here and the tags that we need to publish. We don't have that logic yet. If it's an easy one-on-one, we can make that for you. But when the model is more intricate, when you want to publish an event for several, right now you will have to do some additional stuff. And that is that we need to build a criteria builder. Here I have another one of these, as you can see. This criteria builder, for the keen eye, is something I've already shown a little bit when I was in the create course. Go to the configuration. Up here, we also have a criteria resolver. This resembles it somewhat. Here we resolve it based on, well, what we're getting. Here we're building it based on the identifier that we're getting. So in this case, on a subscription ID, I want to handle events. I want to, well, source events for the state object that are either from my course ID or from my student ID. So this flow has a having tags check. So I'm going to add a new tag, course ID, and then I'm going to take the identifier course ID to string. This piece of text here, so this course ID, that aligns with this field name. So be sure that those match. That is important. If you do want to have other names, you can change the naming here if you'd like, but be sure to be mindful of that. So we have that criteria builder, or we have another one. Let's be super duper lazy. We just add another one for the student ID. So we got our criteria builder, and there's one additional nice thing to this. I can tell you which types I want to react on. So you don't have to do this. You don't have to say I want to have types, because then it will just match for all the types. But you already know which types you want to react on for the course ID, because we know which events have a course ID in. That's the course created event, and that is the student subscribed to course event. So we can just take these and set those. We can provide those as qualified names. So let's, and we're doing it like so. And we're adding another one for the student subscribed to course event. We're going to do the same for the students because, well, that's nice. And why is this nice? Well, it means you're giving a filter essentially to the event store when you're reading the events, ensuring that you're not reading too much, meaning you'd have less I/O. I think that's a nice optimization, right? I think that's very powerful. This idea of the event criteria with providing filters will also come back to event processing, where you're streaming an entire stream of events. I'm very happy that we have this. Where do I need to go to? Oh yeah, we can go to the test now. We should be good if the demo gods are nice enough to me. Ooh, very cool. So, I've reached the end, you would say. I actually have a sneak peek for you guys. After a little chat I had yesterday, we were thinking maybe we can actually show this with Axon Server already. because, well, milestone 2, I can actually show you if I run it here. Let's see, okay, event storage engine. The event storage engine, it's not telling me though, it should be telling me. The event storage engine, at least, trust me, I need to change here something, my apologies, is an in-memory storage engine. I'm not actually persisting anything yet. However, we can if we want to. So let's actually do that. Let's throw this all away. This is craft, I don't need this. Boom, done. That's, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna jump to the milestone 2 sneak peek. In my milestone 2 sneak peek, I've prepared a couple of things for you, which is I changed the dependency. I'm using the 500 snapshot. That is essentially the branch we're building milestone 2 on. I've added the Axon server connector so that we can depend on the Axon server event storage engine. If we go to our configuration again, here in the main configurer, I'm deliberately registering the event storage engine as being an Axon server event storage engine. What I'm doing here is I'm setting 2 components, an Axon server connection manager getting a connection for me, and I'm doing a bit of a cheat here, the test converter. This will be a replacement or a change for the serializer flow that we used to have in the past. It's not done yet, so I just made a simple test converter. Bear with me. Right now I need to make this manually. Once milestone 2 is out, you don't have to do this. As long as you have Axon server connector on your class path and you're using Axon server, you should be good. Furthermore, I prepared the Docker Compose. As you can see, there's a 2025.1.0-snapshot. This has support for DCB. And I need to be very specific here. It has experimental support for DCB. This means that not everything is there yet. Quite a lot is already in place, so I can actually test the entire flow that we want to. But the things that make it production grade are something that the team is working on right now. So, but for a milestone, which framework is in right now, this is perfectly valid to play around so that you can already have an idea. Is this something that I want to use? Is this pleasant to use? So, starting up, and in all honesty, it is taking a bit longer because I'm streaming. So, yeah, my apologies. I think I will go a bit over time. Guess about 10 minutes. Depends a little bit on the amount of questions you're going to have. This is very slow, actually. I think I need a newer laptop. It's really blaring as well. It's lifting off at the moment, so. In the meantime, are there perchance any questions? If you have any, just dump them in the chat and I can have a look. Ooh, it's coming. Yes, and it's making the context stuff. That is good. Alright. Should be able to go to localhost 8024 now. Alright, start it up. I have an Axon server node and an admin. I really don't like light mode, so I'm going into dark mode. I'm going to create a context. So, university. Oh, let me be 100% certain I'm typing the right thing, because I don't want to have any backsies. Yeah, because this is what I'm expecting. Context name with a new replication group. Yeah, with that name on the Axon server node, and I want it to be primary. As you can see here, I need to tell it it's a DCB context. For the time being, that is the way. If you make a default, if you get the default context from Axon server, it's not a DCB context by default. This will eventually be the default, obviously, but we need to provide a migration path. If you have the old stuff, that you can go to the new stuff. If you're just making a new application though, you can, well, make the new one right away. So, we've got our DCB university thing. That is very nice. So, and this is running. I prepared another thing, which is I did a test run to subscribe a student to a course. So here I'm dispatching the subscribe student to course command. So let's view if the demo gods are again nice enough to me. Alright, and it did starting subscribe student to course. Check the event store. Ooh. What would that mean? So let's go to the event store. We can do a search, and we can click search here, and we got some events. That's nice. And now the most interesting bit, let me do light mode actually, it's a bit nicer for you guys, is we have this subscribe student course event, and it has very clearly two tags, as you can see. The course created stuff just has one, and this one has two. Very pleased about that. I did do something wrong with my validation, very obviously, because I have two course created. My apologies. One bug, and this is what you have with live demos. Huh? But the nice thing I wanted to show you here is that Axon Server is ready to have events that belong to two different streams. And I think that is, yeah, that's something to be proud of, at least from our end. So, please give it a try. With that said, I can fully focus on the chat window. Okay, I see a hello from Nakodech. Yeah, hello. Welcome, first time chat I see. Milan as well. Hello Milan. Spring is coming. Yeah, spring is coming. My apologies. I see a request for a target date from Dilgamar. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. My apologies. We are aiming for end of June, beginning of July, somewhere in that area. But as is accustomed to most developers, I'd say, I don't know the exact day yet, but it should be very close to that area for milestone 2, and I believe same for a release for server. Although I'm not in the server team, so I'm not making the promises there. But that's the discussions we've been having. So yeah, soon. Any other questions, perhaps? A very good question. Another one from Dilger. I think I have a guess who you are. Welcome. For milestone 2, no. This is a focus on the team that we want to get things working as quick as possible and prove them. Well, we're in a stage that we can prove it, which we're very happy with. We did have a lot of discussions already about what we think the relational database version should look like, and we will be working on that soon. The intent is to at least have that somewhere this year, that's for sure, but not for milestone 2 at least. Fair question, obviously. Yeah. Anything else? Sure thing. Glad to help. Because if there are no more questions, I can at least linger a bit. Like I said, we'd overdo it by 10 minutes. Still got 5 minutes to go. What else could I show? Not sure really. I think I showed all I wanted to show now. Oh no, I actually have an idea. My bad. So I have shown that you can play around with Axon Server. I'm using a snapshot of Axon Server, but everybody can use that. I see a question again from Dilger. No, the projection side is also something that we are aiming to introduce in milestone 2. Also with testing, by the way. And I understand that you're looking forward to that. I must say I'm also very much looking forward to that. I think there's been an issue for introducing projection testing to Axon Framework, I don't know, since 2016, 2017. Just didn't really have a nice way to fit it in, and now we have. So, thank God. What I wanted to tell next to this, you can also already use Axon Server Snapshot. This is public. So what I'm doing in my Docker Compose, this version is something that you can pull as well if you want to play around with it. So be sure to do if you want to play around with it. You can just use the 2025.1 snapshot, 0 snapshot. Furthermore, I've been doing this in my personal GitHub flow. I made a repo for the Getting Started. So the A5 Getting Started repository. This has a couple of branches, as you can see. And the branches go into steps, essentially the steps of the Getting Started. So there is a step 1 doing the project structure, one that creates the course, one that describes the student, and one that finalizes it. So you can have a look at what I've done afterwards if you want to. And I again want to ask you that if you have any feedback based on what you've been seeing right here, based on what you've been seeing when playing around yourself with the Getting Started, with the Getting Started over documentation, be sure to give us that feedback. We'd very much appreciate any pointers or suggestions you'd have. You can go for that on our forum, so Axonic Discuss, or discuss@axonic.io. And there is an Axon Framework 5 milestones area where you can post questions or opinions about Framework 5. So, hope to see you there. Yeah, and I guess in the meantime I can give a show of the roadmap then, in absence of questions. So you can see that there's also a roadmap in here. This shows what we've done for milestone 1, what we will be doing for milestone 2. As you see, the Axon Server DCB based event store. We're also going to do the command bus side, event processing. We're reintroducing the entity and aggregate modeling. This has been quite a task, but we're almost done, so that's nice. Interceptor support is obviously something that's very important. Spring integration, and we're adjusting how the converter or the serialization flow happens. With obviously a couple of other things, that's the main chunk of it all. Here we have snapshotting for milestone 3, the query bus, and I want to have a distributed query bus. More to be announced. This deliberately doesn't have the RDBMS flow yet because, well, we're still in the discussions phase of that, but should be soon. With that said, if there are no questions, then I'm going to tune off. So I would like to thank everybody for tuning in. This was my pleasure. I really enjoy just showing the ropes like this, playing around with it, because in all honesty, I'm just very proud of what we're making here. I think this is a very nice new flow that we're giving everybody in how to make, to go for vertical slices, to go for a message-driven architecture with Axon Framework. I'm very, this makes me happy. So, thanks for being here, and I hope to talk to you in the future. Bye. Okay, now, really bye. Cheers.